Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching The Wire Wrap. I'm Shravasti Dasgupta. The Election Commission of India has released the final voter list following the special intensive revision of the electoral rolls in Bihar, in which 47 lakh names have been left out of the electoral rolls ahead of the assembly elections, which are likely to be held in November. In Ladakh, after unprecedented protests, climate activist and educator Sonam Wangchuk has been detained under the National Security Act, and he's been taken to a jail in Jodhpur after being accused of instigating protests in which 4 people lost their lives. To discuss all this, I'm being joined by M.K. Venu. He's founding editor at The Wire, as well as Hartosh Singhbal. He is editor at The Caravan. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started with the SIR in Bihar. Just to tell our viewers a little bit about what the final electoral roll has revealed is that the electorate in Bihar has shrunk by about 6%, with a net total of 47 lakh names being left out of the final list that was published just a few days back. But several questions have come up even after this electoral roll has been published, which is that the Election Commission has come out with a statement which was very brief and raised a lot of questions, in that it says that about 68.6 lakh names were deleted in total, but then they added about another 21.6 lakh names, which they are saying were eligible voters who were added through Form 6. Now, we know that Form 6 is the form that is used for enrolling new voters, but in this case, Form 6 was also used for claims and objections to be filed. Now, it's not clear whether these 21 lakh odd names were new voters or those that filed claims and objections. How many voters were left out because they did not have documents? These are all questions that have not been answered. So how must one see the opacity with which the Election Commission has now released this final roll?
Look, this is a continuation of, you use the word question marks. I think there's a question mark over the entire Election Commission itself. Why does it do what it does? The only clear indicators seem to be, and this is obviously just judging from the actions, that these actions always tend to favor the ruling government, the ruling party, which is actually now appointing powers over the Election Commission, because they refuse to answer questions, they are not transparent, and you have a revision of this scale. We still do not know why this revision was necessary, or why it was proceeded with this in this manner, and why it is now extending to the entire country one at a time. Second, on what basis names been taken out, what basis names have been put back. We've all seen reportage on this. At The Caravan, we have reported on this in great detail, that the exercise could not be completed with integrity because each person carrying out this exercise did not have enough time actually to do verification on the ground. So clearly we are at the end of a process where a lot of misdirection and errors happened simply because of the way the process was designed. And then there's a question of the intent of the Election Commission itself. At the end of it, they revise this and release another list. We still don't know on what basis people were taken out, on what basis they've been put back, who has been put back, who asked for them to be put back, did they do so themselves, are there new voters, if so, where did these new voters come from? The simple fact is we never receive. If the idea is an organization is to conduct the democratic process, if such an organization itself is non-transparent, is not willing to subject itself to the norms of democracy in terms of scrutiny, of questions, of processes, then the process is skewed right from the very beginning. And this is the problem with the Election Commission rather than each individual exercise.
Venu, how do you see this? And just to add to what Hartosh was saying, that another important question is that why this was even conducted in the first place. The Election Commission, in its reasons, one of the reasons it had cited was that foreign illegal immigrants had found their place in the electoral rolls. The statement that the Election Commission eventually put out 2-3 days back has no mention of how many of such so-called illegal immigrants were found. So how do you see the closure of this highly contentious exercise with 47 lakh people now being left out of the electoral rolls?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. See, it's the Supreme Court which has made the Election Commission eat crow. They were not, even through the hearing for 1 month, they were resisting everything that the Supreme Court was suggesting to them, starting from with Aadhaar. On day one, Supreme Court said, please consider Aadhaar. They were resisting. And they kept making all kinds of claims to the Supreme Court that they had that already they had approached 90% of the constituency voters, and they've got their forms filled, which later all turned out to be all false. It turned out, as various newspapers reported, their own BLOs were filling forms, and all those exercises were totally vitiated in the sense that it was very clear what the Election Commission was attempting. And as for Ghuspetias, Ghuspetia is BJP's slogan, right? Even the Pradhan Mantri yesterday at a function with in the presence of the RSS senior RSS functionary Hosbole said that demographic change is a big thing, a big challenge for the BJP, for our society. Of course, not many people agree with him. But having said that, he should have had a press conference and come clean, saying that these are the people that we have, voters who have been who are eligible. These are the voters we have removed. For what reasons have we removed? Chief Election Commission should have said that these are there are no Ghuspetias, which was very clear. Because from day one, stories were being planted via sources saying that Myanmaris or some here, there, Bangladeshis are being found. But there are no illegal, voters, immigrants who are come to Bihar. Also, one more thing I want to say: the intention of the party becomes even more clear and diabolic when you see Reporters Collective's investigation, where before the SIR process began, BJP had formally made an application to the election officer in Bihar, the chief registration officer, and even the chief election officer, for applying for deletion of 80,000 voters, Muslims. I mean, so what is your intention? You are applying for deletion of 80,000 Muslim voters. So that, to me, that tells you the real story. While Election Commission is trying to conduct a bogus special intensive revision, parallelly BJP is applying for deletion of 80,000 Muslims. I mean, do you need any more proof as to what was being attempted?
And interestingly, yesterday there was a report in the Economic Times in which sources once again have said that about 6,000 illegal immigrants were found on the rolls. But this is something that the Election Commission needs to come on record and say, but we've not found that. And after such a mammoth exercise has been conducted, has concluded, the Election Commission has not held a press conference to answer any of these questions. So how do you see this, the fact that these stories are continuing to come in newspaper outlets but through sources, but should the Election Commission not come on record to say that this was the objective and hence it has been achieved?
Of course, and these kind of leaks, we all know where they're coming from. They're being planted, they're being placed in newspapers, and the final figure is absurd. Is this the great threat to the Indian democratic process? Is this the demographic change they are alerting us about? Is this what we are focusing on? These absurd numbers which suggest that this is a problem that we should not even touch upon, because we know what is being evoked here. What Modi does, what the government does, now the Election Commission is a fear of Muslims. You use the external threat, but you are again targeting Muslims. The BJP is targeting Muslims. The Election Commission is today a party to the political ideology and the spread of the BJP rather than an independent constitutional institution. I think, to use a famous phrase in Indian democracy about certain constitutional figures, the Election Commission today is worthy of that phrase, a bunch of jokers, because you are not acting or doing your work in the manner you need to do to be a publicly accountable institution. What sense this government drafts Aadhaar, you are resisting Aadhaar itself. You are talking of illegal migrations. What are your figures based on? Why are you raising threats which don't add up in the end? Then you have to source out these ridiculous amounts, these numbers which really don't add up to anything. I mean, if anything, a real threat of democratic change, that demographic change that is happening in the country is the number of convenient sanghis that have appeared in this country. Not just out of conviction, because the desire to share in power, to share in the pelf that comes from power, that is what is happening in this country. That's the real problem.
So, in that statement, the EC also says that if somebody has not found their names on that rolls, then they can go ahead and file claims and objections till 10 days before nomination papers are filed. Now, this is a rule that already exists. So, why was this vast exercise even undertaken when this has to be done all over again? I mean, what is the rationale behind this? Because this is something the EC has told court as well. So, what has been...
My assessment is, Shravasti, that this whole exercise, it was politically directed. They wanted to create chaos. They thought that in the midst of the chaos, they can do their own jaggery pokeri that they are used to doing. And other state elections have also shown that about 5-6 months before the elections, Haryana, Maharashtra, how various things happen to the voters list. Now, this all goes back to the large-scale contamination of voters list, which I have been pointing out time and again. 15 years ago, it used to be less than 1.5% of the voters list. Today, it is 15%, 20%. As Mahadevapura showed, it was 15%. As formal BJP application in the Dhaka constituency in Bihar, which is what the Reporters Collective investigation shows, formally BJP has applied. They have admitted, the local MLA Pawan Bansal has admitted that yes, we applied for deletion of 80,000 votes in a constituency of 2 lakh 10 or 15,000. That's 40%. Look at the chutzpah, you know. So look at the brazenness. I have not seen any exercise formally directed by a political party where they are seeking applying for deletion of 40% of the voters, all Muslims. I mean, where is this ambition or whatever you may call it, this courage or whatever is coming from? Obviously, it's coming from the top, and the CEC is looking the other way. So the problem today with the election commission is voters list are contaminated. I'm sure Maharashtra is also contaminated, the way it was, the changes that happened between Lok Sabha and... So, today we need to actually study all the voters list and study the extent of contamination. I'm saying this because the ruling party always has advantage, the asymmetry of information. Ruling party has full information about the contamination, which was visible when Rahul Gandhi studied Mahadevapura physically for 6 months. Within no time, Anurag Thakur had an electronic list, and he found something in Amethi and Wayanad. BJP has, in stock market trading, they call it asymmetry of information. Some people have information which others don't have, based on which they trade and they make money. So here, there is in our democratic setup, BJP has far more information about these lists, which they may or may not exploit, because they have ready resources, they have all the infrastructure in place to do it, which the other opposition parties don't have. So the only solution to this is we need not an SIR, we need an intensive revision of all the voters lists, study the extent of contamination. I'm happy that Congress has invited, even the ones that BJP has pointed out, Congress has said, okay, please join. Let us address the voters list and the extent of contamination of the voters. That's very important. In fact, I must tell you here, I was speaking to a TDP MP. Now, TDP, as a supporting party, alliance party, they were embarrassed. So they wrote a letter saying that don't make this citizenship, keep citizenship out, which has to be done. So it can't be no more. You can't sort of presume that that voters are not citizens and make them fill forms. That cannot happen, which was attempted in this case. Number two, what TDP is saying is that if you spend about 8,000 crores, they have written to the, I'm told they have written to the election CEC, if you spend about 8,000-9,000 crores, you can get a machine small machine in all the booths around the country, which when a voter comes in, they, in a biometric kind of scan, you and Aadhaar basically, Aadhaar and biometric, which is eye scanning, you assess the genuineness of the person, and then he comes and votes. I think that's a good idea, because that will cut out all the duplicate voters, fake voters, 100 voters from one address, which was found in Mahadevapura. I think we need something like that. We need technology to make things transparent. Here, technology being used to fudge things by the ruling party. They are not letting Congress or opposition have see the the CCTV footage in Haryana. Remember, the court ordered and they refused. So in Haryana, they were opposition didn't get a chance to see the CCTV footage. Haryana High Court ordered CCTV footage be shown, but they changed the rules. The ruling party changed the rules. Election Commission did not show it. So where there is gadbad, technology is being denied. So therefore, we need technology to unearth gadbad and to get things more transparent.
Before we move on from this, one final question I want to ask you on this is that, to your mind, have you ever come across in all your years of covering the Election Commission and politics in India that an electorate has shrunk by 6% just before elections, and there has been no kind of no anger around it, or even if there is, it's been contained in a certain way? What implications does that say? That of course we know that electoral rolls are revised from time to time. That's the job of the Election Commission. But this is not a small decrease. 6% of the electorate is a lot. Is that a cause of concern for you?
See, I think the entire exercise is a cause of concern, and the way it has been propagated. Our problem is not just that there's an asymmetry of information, there is an asymmetry of the ability to get that information out. Once you control the means of propaganda, and what is happening is the kind of questions that are necessary, that should reach out to the public, the kind of questions the Election Commission should be answering, none of them being answered. So this shrinkage coming just before a crucial election, a lot hangs in the balance in this election. Through a process where no questions have been answered, where we do not understand how this has happened, why it has happened. Meanwhile, a game being played which is talking about infiltration and illegal migration, which is not borne out by the figures or facts that have been so far leaked out in some senses. And we all know why this is being done. Obviously, it's cause for concern. It's nothing like that we have seen before. Nothing under the BJP in terms of the electoral process is like what it was before. This is not to say there were no deviations or problems with the electoral process, or the ruling party at many places through strongmen did not deviate from what are the norms. But in this organized, sustained fashion, where even the institutions of running the elections themselves are party to what seems like a non-transparent exercise that favors the ruling party, we have never experienced anything like this before. And obviously this means not only is the level playing field not equal, it's been rigged in one direction. I do feel that the opposition actually has to be even far more vocal. They should have also been part of this revision process. We need to see the list that they submitted and what happened to these revision lists. Because this is a process that can't be a one-off or a few rallies. I think they have to now involve themselves with the electoral process, voter rolls, voter revisions on a day-to-day basis in the same way that the BJP and RSS act. You have to be on the ground every day, every constituency, everywhere, and I don't think that's happening.
I agree with Hartosh. Shravasti, the opposition has to get involved 24/7 in the cleanup of the electoral rolls. By the way, some parties like DMK, they do it on a regular basis. They are very organized. Congress is not organized. There is no doubt about Congress's lack of organization. It's now legendary. So they have to get involved. Other parties have to get involved 24/7 in the cleanup of the highly contaminated electoral rolls. And as for your original question, are you surprised by the shrinkage? I'm not surprised. What Hartosh is saying is right, because there is no trust with this election commission and with this ruling party. People will always doubt that there is a shrinkage. But in terms of logic and rationale, I'm not surprised. If the same exercise were to be conducted in Mahadevapura, there will be a shrinkage, because the fake votes and the duplicates, and they're so massive. As I said, it was 15% of the total assembly voters list in Mahadevapura. So if the same exercise is properly conducted there, there will be a shrinkage. In my view, there will be a shrinkage everywhere. In Maharashtra, there would be a shrinkage because in Maharashtra, as somebody calculated, the number of voters were more than the adult population, or something like that, right? So there will be a shrinkage everywhere. And this, in my view, this shrinkage in the voters list across India, at least in North India for sure, and in some southern states, which are very hotly contested states, it's welcome, but it should be, as Hartosh said, be done in a bipartisan way where the opposition parties also should take ownership of this exercise.
And we have to believe the shrinkage is genuine.
Yeah, we have to
genuine
believe the
reasons
shrinkage is genuine.
that people fraudulent have been knocked out, that people who are fraudulent on the voter list are being knocked out. We have no evidence of that. We don't know who's being taken away, who's being added. And given intentions, we have full right to suspect and doubt the integrity of the process that is taken.
All right, so let's shift focus to Ladakh now, where also we have seen unprecedented scenes last week. And on September 24th, there was violence in the protests that have been going on over there, demanding, among other things, statehood as well as the inclusion of the Union Territory in the 6th schedule of the Constitution. Now, Sonam Wangchuk, who's an educator, climate activist, he has been leading this protest for a long time. He was on hunger strike, and after the violence took place and people lost their lives, he called off his hunger strike. But 2 days later, the Union Ministry of Home Affairs, which had first blamed Wangchuk for instigating the protests and provoking people, he has now been detained and charged under NSA, detained under NSA, and taken to a jail in Jodhpur. So let's get started on this, to the demands of the Ladakhi people. That do you think these are legitimate demands, especially statehood, where we have seen that Ladakh, unlike in Jammu and Kashmir, after Article 370 was read down, Ladakhis were happy. They were celebrating the fact that Ladakh is now a union territory. In the last 6 years, there has been a complete turnaround of events. So, do you think these are legitimate demands that are being raised by the people of Ladakh?
Of course, these are local demands which come from genuine concerns, and these come after experiencing government under the BJP through the centralized Union Home Ministry and its representatives, and finding this is totally inadequate. We are not headed in the direction. As you said, they are people who welcomed a certain move by the center, controversial as it was, are today turning against that very move because of what they've experienced, not because of, once again, we are hearing the same nonsense across the border, Pakistani connections. A man like Sonam Wangchuk, who I think took great care to tread in a way where he would be praising Modi. I don't know whether he genuinely believed that Modi was this great man, but he said that there's a way to create political space where you say good things about Modi and press for demands. It doesn't matter. The very fact that you're asking for reasonable demands on the ground in terms of the ability to decide your own future, to make your own roads, to do local improvements, that is being denied, is a form of centralization that the BJP wants to impose on any region that differs from the so-called majority Hindu construction of the BJP. And you see what is the damage that is being done to India across our borders. The BJP has tried to play around with people's movements from Kashmir to Ladakh to Manipur to Punjab. This is a country that is being destabilized along its borders by the very people who are supposed to look after the country. The RSS and the BJP, through their centralization and their vision and ideology, are doing the worst possible thing for the future of the country by what Ladakh represents and what the rest of the border states represent.
Venu, why do you think, of course, these protests have been going on for a long time. There was hunger strike last year as well. Sonam Wangchuk walked to the national capital, attempted to at least. And so these demands have been ongoing. But why do you think the protests became violent in a place like Ladakh, which a lot of people are saying that this is also unprecedented, that there has been this scale of violence in Ladakh? Why do you think that happened?
Well, I can only, I mean, I've not gone to the ground there, spoken to people there, but I can only, from whatever I can glean from newspapers, it appears that the protest was peaceful and Ladakhis are not, there's no past history of Ladakhis being violent, or any militant movement having taken roots in Ladakh. and it is the tear gassing of the protesters that resulted in some of the younger lot among the protesters who are being called whatever Gen Z, which is become very popular after Nepal. They threw stones, and I don't think there was any cause for firing on them. And I think when the firing happened, they got even more provoked, and there was a lot of anger. There was a build-up over a period of time. It takes extraordinary lack of whatever intelligence or wisdom to convert somebody like Sonam Wangchuk into a NSA detained, whatever, captive, arresting somebody like Sonam, given his record, given the way he's never been a virulent critic of the Modi government either. I'm not sure how people say that he used to, in various forums, including the one in Pakistan, he was fairly neutral, and even he was praising Modi's policies. So you can't say that he's like some of the Kashmiri groups or Kashmiri leaders, the valley leaders, who've been very critical of Delhi all through. He's not been that. And as you said, he welcomed this Ladakh getting an autonomous status. He was seeking formalization of that, 6th schedule. There are genuine problems. Graduates in Ladakh, the unemployment rate is twice that of the rest of the country. It's some 27%.
Yeah, higher than the national average.
Not higher, almost twice. 27% is the unemployment rate among graduates in Ladakh, young graduates. There is a problem there, and you have to address the problem. And this government is so arrogant. As Hartosh said, their arrogance was seen in Manipur. Their arrogance is has been seen in Kashmir, all border areas. Their arrogance has been seen in Punjab. It's their arrogance. It's the sheer. They have their own whatever imaginary reading of every situation. Punjab, they read some big revival of Khalistan, and they went to the extent of creating arrangements to assassinate people in Canada, US. And finally, what happened? The US Congress, that report has named RAW. For the first time, an institution has been named as an entity which was creating this, which attempted to assassinate Pannu in the US, right? So, when have you heard the US Congress report naming an institution like RAW as attempting all these things? So where is all this coming from? This is coming from arrogance at the top,
But also the fact that there has been a breakdown of trust due to the protests, the deaths that took place, Sonam Wangchuk's arrest. Now the political crisis seems to have deepened. The lay apex body has pulled out of the ongoing talks, and they have said that talks cannot be held at gunpoint. The union government was trying to create a toolkit with the help of Godi media to defame the peaceful agitation in Ladakh. So do you see talks happening anytime soon? Because what are the implications if they don't? Because China is a very real presence in Ladakh. So what happens if talks don't take place and there is no de-escalation of the rising tension?
In my understanding, I'll step back and just continue from what it said. It's more than arrogance. It's an ideological belief, a mindset that leads to a certain reaction to public protest. Whether it was the CA, whether it was the farm movement, whatever, when you have public coming out on the streets to protest against this ruling government, it is seen not as a democratic exercise, but a threat to the sovereignty of the country. This is a deliberate construction. If you read Bhagwat's speech in this week, he's talking about people who provoke the government through their acts. So the very act of democracy, of coming out, expressing what you think is wrong, protesting has been read as a crime. It's no surprise, we are also talking in the week that Gandhi was assassinated, the ideological assassins of Gandhi, and we should be sure Godse himself was an RSS member despite the RSS claim he left the RSS. The ideological assassins of Gandhi have a problem with what is happening on the ground in terms of resistance to a government. So if you look at Ladakh, you must see the parallels. They will not react in the same way as they did with the CA, coming down harshly, because Ladakh is Buddhist. We must be clear about the role of religion. The Sikh protesters were looked at a little differently from Muslim protesters because they are seen as our own. So they will try for a certain kind of conciliation. They will try and reach out, but they are not going to be easy. They are going to keep pushing. They are going to try and bind Wangchuk in a corner, but you will see more attempts, like you saw in the farm movements, to reach out than you did in the CAA protests. But ultimately, it comes down to the simple fact that do not see the democratic exercise of resistance or opposition to government as a part of democracy itself. And they will continue to deal with what is happening in Ladakh through this lens, though my bet is that they will be more conciliatory than they would have been if this was Kashmir, for example. Simply because of religious demographics, nothing else. It is not as if they mean better towards the Ladakhis.
Alright, that's all that we have time for in this edition of the Wire Wrap. Thank you so much for watching.